Hey folks, it's Jody Franklin. I'm really excited to have Ryan Obemeier here from Evexia Diagnostics, and he's going to teach you today how to maximize your return on your diagnostic lab services in your practice. And just on a personal note, I'm a client of Evexia Diagnostics, and I just love their services. I've been using them for years. They're very responsive, very reasonably priced, and I use it to get all the labs for my clients. And the other thing that I have done recently is we are doing a promotion in one of my group programs. It's called Vanishing Vitiligo. And in order to get people into the program, we are using it as a lead magnet. And I know Evexia has it set up really nicely where people can actually purchase the labs, and we will do a lab review as a way to segue them into the program so we can show them what areas we think might be causing their vitiligo and then go from there. But thank you so much for joining me, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this conversation. I think it is definitely apropos for anybody who's looking to maximize the diagnostic laboratory service line in their practice.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the career that's led you to this integrative functional medicine space.
Absolutely. So we are about 18 days into my 27th year in integrative functional medicine. 27 years ago, I started my career in the nutraceutical world. At that particular organization, I was employee number four, and I had the great opportunity of doing everything at that organization: sales, sales management, biz dev, international biz dev. During my time there, because it was such a small organization when I started, I had the great opportunity of developing 13 territories from scratch all across the United States. And then I launched the brand into its first two international markets of Mexico and Canada. In fact, I have spent over a year of my life, 1 week at a time in Canada, because I started from scratch up there as well. What I take away from that role or that organization is the integrative functional medicine space is highly fragmented.
Mhm.
What that means is if I were to walk into a practice in Southern Florida, let's say Miami, that practice is not really going to look anything like where I'm originally from in central Wisconsin. So, what I've been able to do by working coast to coast, north of the border, south of the border, is to provide best practices that I've seen across the board where I can share something that I've seen in Southern Florida that maybe they're not currently doing in central Wisconsin, as an example. After my time at that particular organization, I then was the vice president of mergers and acquisitions. I, in fact, bought over the course of about a 4.5 year period 40 medical practices in the integrative and functional medicine space. My greatest takeaway from that was really understanding the healthcare professional in this area of medicine. I thought that through the previous 19 years that I had everything dialed in and I knew exactly what the healthcare professionals wanted. It wasn't until I bought their practice where they stayed on as an employee that I truly had a pulling the curtains back a little bit and seeing what healthcare professionals truly wanted and needed. And then currently today, I am the chief commercial officer at Evexia Diagnostics. And my role, or our role as an organization, is to make your life, the healthcare professional in the integrative functional medicine space, or really anything outside of conventional care, a lot more easier.
So how has it impacted your role then with all your previous experience with Avexia then?
So my role, let's say specifically at Forum Health. So again, I bought 40 medical practices. I was employee number one on day one, grew it from $0 of revenue to many, many, many multiples, millions of dollars. And what I discovered is the concept of creating standards. So
Mhm.
I know that's absolutely nails on the chalkboard for a lot of people in the audience because a lot of you probably come from the standard of care or conventional care. But what I mean by that is you, as the provider, you make the choice. What labs am I going to run when this patient type walks in with this disease state? And then what types of interventions am I going to deploy? Very specifically, dietary supplements, IV therapy, something that I would call emerging therapies like peptides, right?
Mhm.
Do not create standards in your practice, you're going to come across something that I would say is decision fatigue. It's very exciting to start your practice out in this space because you get to use your creativity. But unfortunately, the nomenclature that, again, I've been in the space for 27 years and the industry hasn't served itself. Over the 27 years, this industry has had 27 different names. The current nomenclature, though, is what? Precision medicine, personalized medicine. So what I see what providers think is, oh my gosh, I need the treatment plan to be exactly unique to everything else I'm doing. And the answer is no. Let's use the 80-20 rule. 80% of one treatment plan to the next can be virtually identical. Let's, as providers, use that last 20% to put the finishing touches on. As an example, there's no way as a healthcare professional I could talk to someone who works shift work 11 to 7 in a manufacturing facility in the same fashion I might talk to a woman business professional that works 9 to 5. It's just, I can't do it. So by putting standards together, that's going to prevent decision fatigue, which ultimately is going to lead to burnout. So to answer your question is create standards, relieve yourself from decision fatigue, preventing from burnout. Because I can tell you, over the course of my time at Form Health, I talked to so many providers in their 40s, and they're like, buy my practice for $1. I don't even care. I'm so
Get
exhausted
me out.
running this business. So don't fret from standards. You create them yourself, have the creativity to do so. But then again, kind of just create more of a process to walk patients through the treatment plan.
Yeah, I love that suggestion because I will say, even especially if you're niched down, it makes it very easy. There's no fatigue. You know exactly which labs you're going to get. For example, we have a panel for our vanishing vitiligo clients that everybody gets the same labs because we know exactly what we need to know and what to do with them once they if they come in with that disease. So, and we put together a specialized panel for them within Evexia. So that's very cool. But what suggestions do you have like for maximizing the diagnostic laboratory service line in the practitioners in this group and the health coaches? There's a couple groups for their practices. What do you recommend?
Got to be fluency. I think over the course of my career, not only have I worked with, but I've had working relationships with about 5,500 healthcare professionals in the space. And some of the very best health professionals that I've worked with, they are tinkerers. They like to fix things that aren't necessarily broken. They get very attracted to the new shiny penny. And so a lot of times when they go off to a healthcare symposium, let's say an AFORM or IFM, they come back and their front of the house staff gets very frustrated with them because they have bought a whole bunch of new supplements, ordered a whole bunch of new testing. What becoming fluent in anything that you do, but in this presentation, we're talking through the lens of labs, is become very fluent in your testing. You're choosing the testing, but become fluent. What does this analyte tell me? What interventions do I have? What does it mean if it's out of range above? What does it mean out of range below? What that's going to do is if you find yourself as being a tinker and trying to fix things that may not be broken, and certainly create some unrest with the front of the house, is become fluent. And with fluency, almost create you guard yourself a little bit from your zest for kind of trying to figure out new things. That's not to say that you can't do that, but in short, I think there's a time and a place to install change.
Great. Yeah, I agree. And I'm gonna put, by the way, in the chat on this event and also for everybody here, a special discount link for Avexia Diagnostics if any of you would like to get their labs. And I want to say that for especially for providers that are need a sign off from a physician, it's much less expensive than their competitors for that. So I know Ryan will probably touch on that, but I do have some other questions first. I wanted to ask, you know, if, well, first of all, did you have a presentation you wanted to show first, and then we can get into some Q&A actually?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me grab my deck real quick and let's bring that up. And I'm not the biggest fan of just stopping and doing a presentation, so my apologies to the audience members, but I don't know. I'm a visual person. If I just hearing someone, I kind of my mind starts floating. So hopefully the deck, if you're anything like me, kind of gives you a little bit of visuals of what I'm talking about. But If you're not familiar with Evexia Diagnostics, we're a tech-enabled web-based platform that allows for healthcare professionals, especially those that deal in the cash-based labs, to access all of their testing in a single place. We do deliver on three value propositions. The first one is we're allowing you access to over 40 lab partners, nearly 50 lab partners. So as a healthcare professional, if you want to pursue what we call specialty or functional testing, you can absolutely do that on our platform. But also, if you want to pursue more of the conventional testing like blood work, maybe you could grab one of our plug and play panels that have been created by one of our experts, such as maybe a thyroid panel. You could absolutely do that as well. Now, a third option is that, and I bet a lot of people in the audience, they're going to love this. If you want to create your own custom blood work panels on our platform, you could absolutely do that as well. So my point is this, is with the Evexia Diagnostics platform, as a healthcare professional, you can take it in any direction that you might want to take it. The second value proposition is we improve process, procedure, workflow, and efficiencies. It's being able to order the blood work and the specialty testing all from one platform, and hopefully it's from the convenience of an EMR platform that we have already integrated with. Another area that's going to improve process, procedure, workflow, and efficiencies is a unilateral solution. We call it the functional health report. It's where you can order testing, it provides you with the interpretation of that testing, and it also recommends dietary supplements. You can choose the brand of your liking, and it will spit out recommendations based upon the brand that you've chose. So again, unilateral solution. The testing, we give you the interpretation, and you have the intervention as well.
Ryan,
Another
I just
area.
want to point out, I love that Evexia, the interpretation, because so many labs will show conventional reference ranges. And when you actually see things flagged in red in the functional ranges, which is what the ideal ranges are, it's really makes it so much easier to read the labs, so much quicker to go through it. It's just, it reads beautifully. And I just want to mention that because I use that all the time as well.
Exactly. So if you, it's probably very hard to see, but when you look at the image of the first page there, the third column from the right is going to give you what we would say the functional range. And then the column immediately to the right of that is going to give you the conventional ranges. And just think about your understanding of vitamin D, right? Conventional ranges for vitamin D are significantly lower than those that would view it in the integrative functional medicine space. Another area where we can improve process, procedure, workflow, and efficiencies, especially if you are a solopreneur, we have something called the Vexia Direct. That's where patients pay us directly, and then we can remunerate you, the provider, on the back end, so you can make a little bit of profit off of that.
I just want to
We're,
mention also with that patient or client pay, if they were to go through their insurance, I mean, I'll use the example. My sister wanted a vitamin D. Out of pocket, the insurance they charged her $400 after the insurance had paid their thing just for a vitamin D. Where through Avexia, it's like what, under like 25 bucks or whatever for a vitamin D. I mean, she would have been
18.
better off, or $18 for vitamin D. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I tell my clients you're better off usually than an insurance copay. It's much lower. But anyway.
Well, Jody, I have an entirely unique presentation. Hopefully, I'm invited back and we can talk to you about everything cash-based labs and
Right.
why, as
I
a
would love
healthcare
to.
professional, you might consider that. Where we do our job is through relationship management. So in this space, it's not unheard of for providers to order from 5 or more lab companies. Well, think about it. That's 5 orders every month, 5 boxes of supplies, 5 phone numbers that you need to keep track of in case you have to troubleshoot, 5 relationships that you have to manage. With Avexia, it's one order, 1 box of supplies, one relationship that you're managing. The third value proposition that we deliver on is, where do we see ourselves in the ecosystem of the local practice? Well, we view ourselves as an extension of your practice. We would love nothing more than to take the entire burden off of your shoulders of the diagnostic laboratory service line in your practice. Many people don't recognize it is a heavy lift to add labs to any practice. With Evexia Diagnostics, we do everything for you. So this is the white glove red carpet service. And here are a couple examples. Number one is price negotiating. So I just mentioned our vitamin D is $18, our CBC is $5, and that probably is a better discussion for another time. But nevertheless, we're going to provide you 50 to 80% less expensive labs in the conventional blood work than if you went directly with the lab company themselves. Another area where we can act as an extension of your practice is when there's a problem, we answer the phone. We have 20 client service members that are constantly answering the phone and troubleshooting in minutes. There, we do offer a chat box if you prefer that, and an email as well. But I think a lot of times with labs, you want to talk to someone. We have answers for you. We also help out with lab interpretation, just not the blood chemistry like we saw with that functional health report, but also all the specialty or functional tests as well. We're going to keep you up to speed with what's going on in the lab testing world. What you see on your screen is a breast cancer screen, and the collection is through teardrops. So very, very unique collection, really interesting test that you might consider. Another area where we can act as an extension of your practice is track down orders and results. No longer does the local practice need to do that. Our team now does that for you. We make the call. You no longer need to do that. Likewise, if you're trying to clean up some of the financial statements at the end of the month, maybe a P&L, we will reconcile bills for you. No longer do you need to do that. If you don't work with a phlebotomist on site, we will find the most convenient draw site for your patient. No longer does your team need to do that. Now, if you do have a phlebotomist on site, we will order the supplies for you. You no longer need to do that, and we'll ship them from our own warehouse. We'll also call for that specimen pickup at the end of the day. Because you are part of this group, we will offer you 35 assets that can be white labeled, meaning adding your branding, your logo, your contact information. This is anywhere from a TikTok video or an Instagram video, an animated video, a social media post, a promotional email. This is not available to all Evexia Diagnostics. It's just because you're a part of this group, we are going to extend that to this group, and everything is, we don't charge for any of the white label marketing. We're available after clinic hours, on weekends, and on holidays. And so hopefully I've showed you how we've set ourselves up to be the one-stop shop for all things labs. And we are available for the low monthly fee of free. We are 100% free. So we don't upcharge patients, so our labs aren't going to be more expensive through the upcharging, and we do not upcharge the doctor as well. If we wanted to have you pay everything that you can, we do have a service that is $50 a year. And in my mind, that's still for free. It's 13.6 cents a day. And that grants you some access to some other items. So hopefully you consider Evexia Diagnostics as a way to improve the business owner's life, the provider's lives, by making their lives a lot easier, granting them access to over 10,000 tests in one place where we can act as an extension of your practice. And I kind of look at it as free labor. Rather than having to hire someone for that service line, we'll do it all for you. So in short, thank you very much. So if you do have your cell phone, this is a QR code that is going to direct you to a landing page for Jody, and I'll pull that up really quickly. She already put it in the chat box. What that QR code is going to do is it's going to send you to this, and you can read a little bit about Evexia and everything that's being offered. But the one thing that I want to point out is that Jody has curated some panels that are exclusive to her groups only. So you cannot gain access to these panels at all unless you register on this. So you're just going to click the register now. It takes you to our registration page, and then you should be good to go. So with that stated, thank you very much for taking a very quick listen about Evexia Diagnostics.
Yeah, that was amazing. I like I said, I love the ease of use with this, where my clients, I mean, there are there's LabCorp basically everywhere. And if there isn't one in like a remote area, you guys will provide for it and find some place where they can get a lab draw. And there's it's incredible. I mean, I just literally can put in an order. If you're not licensed to order labs, a physician will sign off on it, and you can just it'll go to your client or patient's email. They can just either print it out, or if they go to the nearest LabCorp, the order's already in there. I don't even think they have to print it up, or they can bring it on their phone if they want. but it couldn't be easier to get blood work. And then all the specialty labs that I use are all in Evexia. So to Ryan's point, I don't have to go to three different websites, or my admin doesn't have to. She does the ordering for me, and she can just go on one site and order everything. And it's just like, it just makes life so much easier, and it's free. So for those of you, I don't recommend anyone who doesn't understand interpretation of labs to order labs unless you have some training on how to understand and interpret it. But Avexia staff can help you with that. And I think there's a question from Sharon. She says, is there a fee to have a consult on a GI map? She says she thinks that they have to pay for the consult. Is that right? She has an Avexia account.
They do not. So I think what this question is around is my competitor does not serve non-licensed providers for consults. So let's say for a DSL's GI map, if
Mhm.
you are a provider whose license doesn't include the scope of ordering labs, it's my understanding that my competitor does not allow for um, interpret lab interpretation. So with that $50 fee, which we basically charge annually, it does grant you access to unlimited email consultations with our Ask the Doctor program. Now, if you want to jump on the phone, then yes, there is a fee to be speaking directly to the doctor. But if you pay the $50 a year, you could send 10,000 emails in a day and it's no charge.
And I think the customer service is actually pretty excellent. Esther wants to know if you've worked with patients in Alaska. Can you service Alaska?
That's a great question. The only states that we currently do not serve is New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island.
Because of the
However, we are
limitations.
working on a solution for New York and New Jersey. I'm not smart enough, but I am a fly on the wall in some conversations. It sounds like Rhode Island is never going to be a solution, but absolutely we serve Alaska and Hawaii.
Okay. Just come to Massachusetts and we'll take care of you up here, Rhode Island people. Just a few other questions. So, let's talk about the non-licensed providers. Do you have any more details on that? So, registered nurses, registered dietitians, health coaches, how can they gain access? How do they explain a little more about the process?
Yep, it's called EIPN. It just stands for Evexia Internal Physician Network. And our internal physician network team will sign off or provide a signature for your lab order. So again, if you are a provider and your scope of practice does not allow you to order that, you can go ahead and utilize it. The fee is $5.
And
It's my
that's
understanding my
huge.
competitor is 28.
I was going to say your competitors, what is it, 20 or 28?
28
$28 for the
versus
near
5.
for the big competitor. We're not naming names. We're not going to, but for non-licensed, that's a huge difference. If you ordering for clients every day, you could spend $100 or a couple $100 a day, depending on how many people you're facilitating in your labs for, in just those fees. And you could pass the fees on, or the savings on to your clients as well, or patients. And what about it? Many of those in our audience offer program bundles. So
Yes.
tell us how that works. How can Avexia help with that?
So I would just say in the last three, well, probably at this juncture, 5 to 7 years, what I have noticed is people offering programs and bundles. And I think it's a fantastic idea. And the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of healthcare professionals, even if they're in the cash-based world or a hybrid payer model, they will still allow their patients to leverage their insurance benefits for labs.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, they think that there's this conflict of interest, which hopefully I'm invited back and we can have another very great discussion. In fact, I have 8 bullet points on if I was a healthcare professional, I would only offer labs through cash-based labs and not even leverage insurance. So that's for a different day. But one of the ways that you can relieve the heartburn that you might have if you find yourself needing to mark up labs. Again, I bought 40 medical practices in a very short period of time. I looked at financials of over 500 practices. I would just say this, and it's not because I work for Evexia Diagnostics. You, as a healthcare professional in this space, do need to make some margin on the labs because when you consider what they call time and motion, time it takes to place the order, receive the box, get it on the shelf,
Or
do
pay
the
your admin.
interpretation, there's value in that. And
Mhm.
most providers are not recognizing that. And so it's costing you money. So an easy way to give yourself a little bit of margin on the labs, not have the heartburn that many have, they don't want to feel like they're nickel and diming, is create bundles. And quite frankly, I think that's where America's at is we have memberships to everything, right? Or
Mhm.
we want to buy something and know what we're getting for it rather than what we would say with fee for service, we kind of go a few steps, get charged again, go a few steps, get charged again. So again, I love programs, I love bundles. And if you are a provider who has a little bit of heartburn and feel like you're nickel and diming by just marking up, do understand, I think you should. But a way around that heartburn is probably doing the bundling or programming.
Well, and we just set this up literally, and it was super easy to do. But like for our Vanish and Vitiligo lab, lab program, we're gonna allow people that are interested in the program to do a quick lab review. So they order the labs, they just go to a button. We're charging them an extra fee because we're going to be evaluating them. We're spending like a 30-minute evaluation of their labs. So it looks like they're just paying for the labs and getting a free evaluation, but we built in a padding in there to cover our time, and that money goes directly right back into our account. So it's like you could actually earn money on your labs for your orders for your clients. And even just to offset your admin costs, I think it makes good sense. That's something I'm sort of missing the boat on. I probably need to do that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, a lot of functional places will double the cost of the labs and take the profit. You're making money on your supplements, you could also profit on your labs as well. And it's still way less than insurance is charging. Um,
I agree. And I love that program that you're doing. We offer it. It's called the Lab Test Funnel. It's leveraging a program called Leading with Labs.
I can
The
put the
marketing,
link to that in
that
the
would be great.
chat. Yeah, I'll do that. And there's actually a thing already done out for you on that, which is wonderful. And I'll put that in the chat as well.
What that program essentially does is where labs are historically buried inside of a treatment plan, it brings labs out front. So your first interface with a prospective patient is actually reviewing the results. So it's a great way to bring labs from the back of the curtain into the front and engaging with prospective patients.
Definitely. I'm going to put that in. You have to give me a minute on that. But while I'm getting that queued up, any final thoughts for everybody that you want to go through? And I'll go
I
through a
do.
couple more questions on the feed too. I'll read those in a minute.
I have two final thoughts. Number one is, again, I'm going back to my world in mergers and acquisitions. Again, I was bought a lot of practices, reviewed a lot of financials. But if you are somebody who is in business to at some point have an exit, meaning sell your business for a great value, think about growing yourself out of the business. What that means is the more revenue that you are responsible for generating at your practice, the less valuable your practice is worth because the person who's buying your practice has to replace you. So if you're $1 million business and you generate $1 million yourself, your business is not worth a lot. However, if you are somebody and you've hired two people who work underneath you and you function as a medical director, your practice will be worth a lot of money depending on your profitability. So that's my first one is just think about how do I grow myself out of the business if I'm looking at an exit in the next 3 to 7 years, or if I'm starting my practice and I just have a plan at some point to exit. The second bit of advice for today is as an entrepreneur, I truly believe, or I firmly believe, that you need to schedule 1, possibly 2 days every month to work on the business as opposed to in the business. And not only do I think you need to schedule it Monday through Friday if that's your practice hours, I think you also have to know thyself. What environment do you need to get into flow state? And flow state just means the ideas are just coming so fast I can barely write them down. For me, it's two areas. Very busy Starbucks where I got a lot of white noise in the background, and then number two is hiking. And not only is it hiking, it's hiking alone. I find myself, if I'm hiking with anyone, I don't get in a flow state and the ideas don't come. So again, my two bits of advice: work yourself out of the business if you're looking for a great exit. And number two, start thinking as an entrepreneur. How do I start working on the business as opposed to solely in the business? Get it on the calendar and get yourself to a place where you're in flow state, where you're not struggling to come up with ideas.
Great advice. I did put in the Lead with Labs webinar. There's some great um, information in there on how to do it. If you're wondering, like, how do I do it? How do I set this up? What do I, all the different ways to do it. So there's some great free advice in that webinar. And also it's a discount link to get the program. So if you're interested in that, I put that in there as well as the link to join Evexia. For those of you who haven't, it's free. It's, with that link, it's free to set up. I don't get paid by Avexia to do this, and it costs me to do these webinars with my staff doing all the work. So it helps me, doesn't cost you anymore to use my link to do it to offset the cost. If you like me bringing in guests like Ryan and other guest speakers, it really helps me if you use the links and it doesn't cost you any more money. So go ahead and set up an account with Avexia, try it out. You have nothing to lose, and I think you'll be very pleased with them. They're so receptive. The customer service is excellent. I can always get somebody on the phone to answer my questions if I need to, and that's rare, honestly, because it's very intuitive. They just have it set up beautifully. They've been doing this a long time. They're the biggest by far lab provider like this, Ryan, right?
We are.
Yeah, much bigger than the competition, and really robust. And because of the size of them, they can offer us a way to do it for less. The costs of the labs are actually less overall. Am I right on that?
On the blood chemistry, yes.
So the blood chemistry tests are less, and I think they're comparable with the other pricing of the other things. So definitely do it. Somebody, there's a couple questions here. Can you clarify the fees associated with functioning as a health coach to order labs? So I think we covered that. It's only $5 per lab order. That's it.
You got it.
Easy to
That's
do. You could
correct.
charge your client for that. You don't even have to pay it. Another question, if I have patients in New Jersey and in New York, and I'd like to find a different way to have labs ordered for them, how long do you think it will take before you come up with a solution for those states? Let me just say this, Esther. If they have friends in a neighboring state, there's a workaround there. I mean, maybe I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I've seen it happen where people go to like their cousin in Connecticut and get the lab shipped there, that kind of thing. So I know, or Pennsylvania or whatever. So there's ways around it, but go ahead, Ryan. Maybe I'm not supposed to
I
say
may
that.
or may not be able to confirm that, but to
Okay.
answer your question,
I'm gonna get him in trouble.
I would say we're probably 120 to 150 days out by functioning in New York and New Jersey.
Wonderful.
But again, there may be some other avenues to explore prior to then.
Okay. We'll end on that note. Well, thank you all so much. And Ryan, I appreciate you coming on. This was really great. I hope that you all learned something from it. And if you're in the group and you see our webinar in there, if you could give it some love, we'd really appreciate it so more people can see it. We'll be sending out the replay too in the email. If you're not on our email list, be sure to get on it. You can message me with your email and we'll get you on the email list for this group. All right, everybody, take good care. Ryan, have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.